Alright there, geezers, Jules here from FGS, home of the Future Games Show. Do you know what I absolutely hate? One-time characters returning out of nowhere! Yes, Esteban, my evil twin brother, I do absolutely hate that, but I also hate it when great gaming mechanics are abandoned by the developers when, if they'd just been carried forward into another title, could have made them absolute bank. Now, one can think of no better example than the Nemesis system from Shadow of War and War of Mordor being locked behind a Warner Brothers style padlock, despite the mechanic being one of the most celebrated of its time. Oh, sorry, what was that? Oh, I can think of better examples and have put them together into a themed episode based around that subject. Well, isn't that lucky for you people at home? Thank you, me. So let's have a chat about them then, as I'm Jules, this is FGS, and these are some abandoned gimmicks that could make millions today. So let's kick things off by talking about the hot swap. Live, die, respawn. This is the mantra of online shooters, albeit in my case there's an extra step titled moan about what the f just happened as my twitch reflexes have gone the way of the bloody dinosaurs. Still, what if I told you that there was a way to mitigate that last part, to turn the act of respawning into a gameplay mechanic that was at once unique, tactical, and most importantly, fun? Well, you'd probably call me the Pied Piper of Porky Pies, is what you'd probably do, because such a feature would revolutionise the FPS industry, and surely we'd all be using it today. But wait, before you take me down to the dungeon and burn my toes with candles, or whatever weird, sick freak thing you're going to do to me there, it is true, because today we're going to kick things off by talking about the hot swap mechanic that blazed a trail in Battlefield 2, but then was snuffed out for unknown reasons. I'm really not sure why, actually. This was brilliant. The mechanic allowed players to point at a friendly unit and instantly take control of them, allowing for tactical redeployment on the fly and allowing you to set up ambushes, respond to new threats, and even just get some breathing room in a heavy firefight. It was a wonderfully implemented mechanic, as in BF2 you couldn't grab just a new weapon or heal yourself up by walking over medipacks or hiding behind a wall and just deep breathing that 50 cal bullet that's lodged itself in your dome. Therefore, hot swapping was the only way to manage health and ammo reserves, thereby adding a reason to care about your NPC team and forcing you to try your best to keep them alive. Now, just imagine a battlefield where like 200 plus NPCs were present on the map and where this formed your team life counter, and then imagine you and some mates hot swapping your way to the front lines to take command. It's honestly maddening that this isn't an option for today's shooters. And when you look at how each other is trying to crib notes from one another and just become the new Fortnite, the hot swap mechanic could finally separate people from the pack and give us some, you know, new experiences. Okay, I've got some fire in this dog, and let's talk about uploading pet pictures. Yes. Now, as you might be able to see here, friends, our old pal, the evil finger Temple of Doom, is out once more, and that signifies that I've been a little bit of a stinker with this next entry. As while the idea of uploading pictures of your pets and turning these into video game characters or in-game pets is an absolute money idea, it doesn't exist in any video game yet. For you see, the technology to do this amazing pet pixelation exists, but hasn't been applied yet, and was even reported on widely back in 2020. Absolute science and maths whiz over at the University of Bath here in the UK sought to create a digital library of canine movements across several different breeds. The idea being that they could use this database to analyse the health of dogs and note when they were experiencing pain based on movement and postures. Although, to be honest, I personally think that this just came about because somebody wanted to see their pup in a motion capture suit. And can you blame them? What this means for gamers, though, is that this library of realistic movements could be licensed by a publisher and put to use in their games by allowing players to upload images of their pets and have realistic one-to-one digidogs waiting for them on the other side. We've already seen use of the mechanic with facial scan uploads being used in sports games to varying degrees of success. Get that away from me, Mark, that's disgusting. But if you think about applying it to pets and then consider how much the internet loves animals, this is a license to print money and then some. And yet, this remains a golden bone buried in the backyard, and a bone of contention with me, as well as I just want my fat little cat Sagan and my even smaller cat De Beaver to be immortalised forevermore. Look at him, little chubby boy walking around. He's got big teeth as well, so I imagine he's like the fattest vampire cat going, just like, hey everybody, good to see you, good to see you. Right, so now we're kicking into action. Let's talk about the penalty system from International Superstar Soccer 64. Okay, let's talk about penalties, my friends, and how we can make them brilliant. Right, so while I hate to admit it, the FIFA franchise, or EAFC, is and will most likely always continue to be a money-printing juggernaut, especially since it's embraced its true role as a collectible card game, which honestly, as a true cardboard king and sleeve slave, I actually kind of adore. It's like all of those jockey laddie types that you knew back at school who looked down on you for having an MTG collection and now paying tons of real-world cash for a shiny Mbappe, so it's like, ooh, can't wait to see if they do a holo reverse two-part fusion of Peter Crouch. The joke being that he's tall. I don't even know if he's a relevant footballer. I follow it that little. Anyway, back on track, I know of a feature that they could add from an old game that would actively increase their sales tenfold, because if they copied the penalty shootout system mechanic from International Super Soccer 64, then they would make one of the most boring and transparent aspects of their game into something that fans would clamour for. You see, how ISS 64, or IS 64, handled its penalties was to give both the goalie and the opposing player a box showing where they were defending or attacking. The gamers could use a short window of time to line up their shots and or try to block it. However, when the player taking the penalty began their run-up, the boxes would disappear. And where the true brilliance of this mechanic shines is right here, because the player could still actually move their boxes right up until the strike, meaning you could properly fake out your opponent at the last second when they can't even see it, or deliver on that shot and hope that they panicked and moved their defense. It is such a fun experience that you beg for this to be a full feature in pretty much every football game going forward. And with the marketing power of EA, well, this could make them a metric shed-load of cash. And that's a lot. That's a universal standard of British measurement right there. A shed load. Okay, friends, I won't lie to you here. The next entry is a little weird in that it really is a mechanic that should be brought back to make just one company in particular a ton of money. And trust me, seeing as I have what appears to be a life debt to this franchise, it will make sense shortly, and hopefully I will too. Hello everyone. Oh, Mark, please bring in my apology podium. Yeah, let's bring this in. I guess it's kind of an official thing right now. Hello everyone, my name is Jules, and I am a Dynasty Warriors addict. And yes, I'm aware that I've been basically paying for the same game since the early 2000s. And no, I don't actually want help with my problem. I actually love it. I know. I won't ever stop. I can hear you booing. I'm not even going to stop. Not going to stop. In fact, my only issue with the Dynasty /Samurai /Orochi /Gundam Warriors franchise is that the Dynasty /Fire Emblem /Hyrule /Persona Warriors games of late, excluding the recently announced Dynasty Warriors Origins, which may be okay, haven't actually been that good. The ideas have been stale, the additional content bare bones at best, and the AI so utterly devoid of self-preservation skills, it feels like you're battling through an unending wave of depressed lemmings. Still, there is a remedy to this, and all that needs to happen is that Koei Tecmo needs to basically remake another game series that held a brilliant RTS/hack-and-slash fusion gimmick. And hell, they can do this without punishment, as the series in question even abandoned this mechanic within their own game line. This right here is Kingdom Under Fire, a title that you're probably now pulling from the deepest recesses of your memory banks, and are likely doing so alongside the memory of it being the graphics were fine, the setting was nice. The series really just suffered from actually implementing their lofty ideas because they had sluggish combat, atrocious frame rates, and a general lack of polish across the board. Yet the idea of commanding troops from above RTS style and then diving down into combat to take on the Horde yourself is an absolute $1 million mechanic, especially if it was delivered with the relative polish and familiarity of a Koei Tecmo romp. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, Jules, wait a minute, mate, didn't Koei Tecmo actually make the Kessen series, which is pretty much this idea? Yeah, they did actually, yeah. So it's double stupid that they haven't continued with it in the current era. Plus, I was just playing Kingdom Under Fire recently, and it was the impetus for this episode. So yeah, bring it back, you cowards. And speaking of cowards, let's talk about something else here, about how to punish them for money. Now here's a contentious choice for sure up next, but much like the local government switching a dog poo bin for a bench, which is now just a bench covered in dog poo, thank you very much, Rhondda City Council, we're going to ignore common sense for a minute and then talk about complicating the often nuanced experience that is fighting games. Now, for fighting game purists, the idea of adding anything that isn't directly tied to a character to the game is pretty much akin to a war crime. And it's true, the gems from Street Fighter X, Tekken, and weirdly, the gems as well from the Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate game really are the type of stuff that ruins the experience if implemented poorly. However, these same purists might actually enjoy a mechanic that is used in the brilliantly underrated and woefully underplayed Persona 4 Arena, because they found a way to truly punish cowards. Now, it's never nice to experience a fight where your opponent just constantly backs off to either run down the timer and end the fight with a health advantage, or, I don't know, just spam fire the same projectiles at you over and over again. And clearly, the devs behind this game felt the same, because if you disengage from combat for too long, then you receive a negative debuff, complete with a slew of sad, annoyed faces that fly around your character. And while you're in this state, you'll take 50% more damage, and unlike some other games that use a kind of similar mechanic like BlazBlue, you have to hit your opponent multiple times in order to remove the debuff rather than just once, which again prevents the rogue projectile spammer from just allowing your opponent to keep their distance by just getting one through. It is a great mechanic which forces players to stay in the fight, and I don't think that esports enthusiasts around the world would say, no thanks, oh, all this action, oh, bloody hell, I hate that. It's not what I watch fighting game tournaments for. I want to see somebody in a corner just going, Hadouken, 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 Hadouken. That's what I pay for. All this combo stuff, it's freaking me out. And so they'd want to say yes to even more delicious combo potential. And speaking of combos, what about co-op driving? Where's that gone? Because now we're going to be talking about an utterly wholesome mechanic that, if it were added to more games, would see a spike in that slightly niche but altogether lucrative demographic, which is parents with young kids who still want a game but at the same time have young kids. Ooh, that's a tough one. Being a time-poor gaming parent is a real thing, and therefore it would sure be nice if gameplay mechanics allowed for those struggling between being a good influence on their kids and maintaining their gaming credentials to get the most out of their time gaming. Enter the concept of co-op driving, which we last saw hit big with the likes of Mario Kart Double Dash, and through connecting your PSP to the PS2 in Crash Tag Team Racing if you're looking for a slightly deeper cut, and World's Scariest Police Chasers on the PS1 if you're going to force my hand for a truly deep cut classic. But still, let me tell you what a blooming great mechanic this was, as here lesser skilled drivers could take up the role of item manager or gunslinger, helping you clear the track of enemies while you focused on the power sliding and boost riding. Why hasn't this been implemented again in mainstream races or kart games is beyond me, and as World's Scariest Police Chasers proves, it doesn't even have to be limited to more child-friendly games, as here the co-op element works perfectly. Well, assuming your partner doesn't have the accuracy of a lobotomized stormtrooper, that is. So here's one for the developers and publishers out there fine-tuning the engines of their latest races. Give Player 2 some consideration. It doesn't always have to be a head-to-head race, and in many cases, I think that we prefer the idea of co-op kart racing once more. And finally, we land on an idea that I know, without a shadow of a doubt, would make millions because, well, here is me gesturing to Minecraft. Creative tools like this kinda sell well, I'm told. Now, to be fair, the death of the mission editor mechanic is one that we could all kinda see coming from a mile off. I mean, mainly because the legwork required to give players not just a simplified creation suite that is easy to use for non-developers, but also allow you to make own missions and track the objectives is fairly large. But I honestly cannot think of a more pure time in my gaming life than sitting down with the likes of Tenchu 2 or the Timesplitters series and engineering the maddest death gauntlets known to man. While there are obvious games like Quest Hero and Mario Maker that prove level editors simply work and are received very, very well, actually making missions for yourself or other players is a sure rarity in this day and age. Outside the likes of RPG Maker, you just don't see many examples of developers allowing players to make their own objectives and missions. The fact that fan-made levels are still the highlight of Left 4 Dead 2 shows that there is still a demand for tools like this, and if a high-profile studio with access to amazing tech were to extend this to a player base, well, it could cement a franchise in history as well as the sales charts. And there we go, my friends. Those were some abandoned video game mechanics and gimmicks that would make millions today. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on my social medias. It's just at Blue Sky now. It's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. I am actually active on this social media platform, and it's kind of nice. It's really, really good. And you can follow my lovely editor Mark over on his social medias over here as well. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today about crazy mechanics and stuff that have been abandoned, let's talk about one that I try and reinforce every single time I sign off these videos. And that is just allowing yourself to be positive about yourself. That bit of self-positivity, all right, my friend, because you deserve the best. You deserve love, happiness, and success. We all do as human beings, all right? And I just want you to live a healthy and happy life, all right? And get out there and smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.